Is anyone else excited for some summer reading? I used to always get so excited for the summer reading program at my library, and there is a really fun challenge here on BookTube that you can participate in that I think gives some of those same summer reading challenge vibes. I'm going to share that with you and some of my anticipated summer reads and a very large possibility pile. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life. Today it is all about summer reading. I can't believe summer 2024 is almost upon us. And I thought that I would share with you guys some of the books I am thinking about reading over the summer months. Maybe it will inspire you to pick up some of these books or similar books. And I was originally going to just pull a bunch of books off of my shelf because while I know a lot of booktubers might be doing anticipated summer reads, which include books that are about to be released, I don't keep up with the new releases in that way. So that's not what you're getting from me today. For me today, you are going to get books that I have pulled from my shelves for the most part and am hoping to get to this summer. And when I was thinking about doing this, lo and behold, Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia announced her summer book bingo challenge, which I participated in last year and had so much fun doing. I think I might have done it the year before as well. She's been doing it for a number of years now, and she has brought it back this year, and it is the perfect summer reading challenge. Her bingo board has very broad categories. I think it's really easy to find books that you want to read that you can plug into the different categories that she has chosen. And this is a super fun way to work your way through your TBR and with the possibility of winning a little prize at the end. I'll share a picture of the bingo board here on the screen so you can see what it looks like. She has this saved on her Instagram page, and I'll have that linked down below for you. And I will also link to her announcement video where she talks all about the summer book bingo challenge, and you can get all the details there. The challenge is very simple. Complete one row or one column on the bingo board, and that gets you one entry into Tiffany's drawing. And the books are to be read between June 1st and August 31st, and then you have until September 1st at the end of the day to submit your bingo board, and then she will pick a winner. And I believe she's giving away a gift card to your online bookseller of choice. And it is such a fun challenge. I just really like that it helps me structure my summer reading in some way rather than just kind of willy-nilly picking whatever I want. I like kind of having these broad categories to choose from. And I have gone through my shelves. My shelves are looking a little bit emptier than normal because I have pulled so many books to talk to you guys about that fall into the different categories. I have 3 categories that I don't have any books for, so maybe you guys can give me some recommendations for at least 2 of the categories. The other one, I will get to that one and I will explain why I don't have anything chosen for it. And I think I'm going to have to break this video up into 2 parts because I have so many books. I think this is going to take a really long time to get through. So I'm going to do the first 12 squares on the bingo board in this video. That will get me to the free space in the middle, and then I will do the remaining 12 spots on the board in a second video. And I will have that video out for you next week. One thing I did want to mention before I get into the books is that I did not include any books for any of the other challenges or things that I am doing. Either my TBR 24 and 24 books are not included. I did not include my Lord Peter Wimsey read through that I'm working on, or the Little House books that I'm reading through, or the Agatha Christie Read Christie 2024 challenge. So none of those have I included. I didn't include any of my book club books because I just wanted to have a good variety of things to pick from that I wasn't reading for some other reason. And certainly some of those books I can slot into some of the categories on the book bingo board, and I will probably use them for that. But I just wanted to show you guys all of the potential summer reads that I have on my shelf. There are so many good books that I have to potentially read this summer. And I'm really hoping that having all of these wonderful books at my disposal will stave off the summer reading slump that I have gotten myself into in the past couple of summers. So fingers crossed that between the summer book bingo and all of these amazing books I have on my shelf that I can choose from to read for that I will not have a slump this summer. That is my goal. We'll see how I do. Anyway, so I just wanted to put that caveat in, but let's dive into the books. We're just going to start in the upper left corner and work our way around the board. The first category on the bingo board is Place You'd Like to Visit. I have chosen 3 books off of my shelf that would qualify for this category. And the first book is one that has been sitting on my shelf for such a long time, and that is Fatal Inheritance by Rachel Reese. And this is set both in London in 1948 and then also in the south of France. And we follow Eve Forrester, and she's hoping to find courage to get out of her marriage. And she gets a letter. A wealthy stranger has left her a mysterious inheritance. And in order to find out more, this is why she has to go to the south of France. And there she finds she has been bequeathed an enchanting villa overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, and suddenly life could not be more glamorous. But while she rubs shoulders with the rich and famous, challengers to her unexplained fortune begin to emerge, challengers who would love to see Eve gone forever. Yes, so sounds like a bit of a mystery, a little bit historical, and I have had this on my shelf for an incredibly long time. I would love to visit the south of France sometime, and this might be the perfect way to escape there through a book. A little bit of a bookish vacation. The next book that falls into the category of a place I'd like to visit is 3 Summers by Margarita Liberaki, and this takes place in the countryside near Athens in Greece, and I really would love to go to Greece someday. And I think this is about 3 sisters. The 3 sisters are Maria, Infanta, and Katerina, and this is told over the course of 3 summers, and I think it's a bit of a coming of age. This is another possibility. And then the third book is another book that has been on my TBR for such a long time, and that is My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. I think most people have heard of this book and know what it's about, but it is set in Italy, another one of my bucket list dream places to visit. And in this, we follow 2 friends, and they are Elena and Lila. And it starts in the 1950s and just follows their friendship. And this is the start of, I think it's a trilogy. Are there 4 books? I'm not sure. So there's 3 or 4 books in this series, I do believe. And I know people kind of love this or hate this, so we'll see how I get along with it. But this is definitely a possibility, and it's been on my TBR for so long, and I'd really love to at least give it a try this summer. The next bingo board spot is a classic. Tiffany said you can use classic however you use that term, and so I have some older classics. I think I have some modern classics in here, and I have a couple of middle grade classics as well. So I have actually 5 books for this category. I'm definitely not going to read all of them, but I figured I would pull them all, and then I can just read whatever I am in the mood for. The first one is probably the one that I really want to get to the most because it's been on my TBR for so long. But I'm hoping this is the year, and that is The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. And this is about a grandmother and a granddaughter. This is a book translated from the Swedish, and I believe it's set in or near Sweden. And I think I could be wrong in that. Anyway, but it's about this young girl and her grandmother over the course of the summer. It says, together they amble over coastline and forest in easy companionship, build boats from bark, create a miniature Venice, write a fanciful study of local bugs. They discuss things that matter to young and old alike, life, death, the nature of God and of love. On an island, thinks the grandmother, everything is complete. In the summer book, Janssen creates her own complete world full of the varied joys and sorrows of life. And this is a very slim little book. I really, really want to get to this summer. The next book is a classic by an author who I take that back. I've read one thing by this author. The book I have here is The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I've read The Old Man and the Sea. That is the only Hemingway I have ever read, but he has been on my want to read classics list for a very, very long time, and I would really love to get to this one. In this one, we follow Jake Barnes and Lady Brett Ashley, and this follows them on a journey from the wild nightlife of 1920s Paris to the brutal bullfighting rings of Spain with a motley group of expatriates. It is an age of moral bankruptcy, spiritual dissolution, unrealized love, and vanishing illusions. Anyway, I would love to give this a try. I'm not sure how well I'll get along with Ernest Hemingway. I know he's got a very distinct writing style, so we'll see how this goes. But I'd love to at least, again, give this one a try this summer. Next is another author who I've only read one book by her, and I find her very intimidating, but I really want to read her, and I have a number of her books on my shelf, and that is Virginia Woolf. This is Mrs. Dalloway. And Mrs. Dalloway takes place over the single day in a woman's life, and I believe it takes place in June. She's preparing for a party, so it's just all about the preparations for the party. I find Virginia Woolf very intimidating. I don't know why. And then the last two books I have that fall into the classics are middle grade books. The first is Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm by Kate Douglas Wiggin, and I just think this would be a good little summer read. It's about the Randall family's life. Seems to be constant pandemonium. And it's about Rebecca and her 6 brothers and sisters, and then her 2 unmarried aunts kindly agree to take their poor relation off her mother's tired hands, and Rebecca finds her new life stifling, but not for long. So it sounds like she's maybe going to get into some mischief and different things, and that sounds fun and delightful and a light little classic middle grade read. And then the other middle grade read is also another recent purchase, which I found at the library book sale recently, and that is Swallows and Amazons by Arthur Ransom. And this just sounds like a fun child adventure story, and I am really, really looking forward to getting to this one. And I believe it's the first in a series of books about this family. And yes, this looks just utterly delightful. I really hope I get to this one. The next spot on the bingo board is hot, in quotation marks, cover. And Tiffany said you can interpret this in a few different ways. It can have the word hot on the cover. It could have something hot looking on the cover, I guess, like fire or whatever. And so my 2 books maybe just barely qualify as having a hot cover. But the first book I chose for this category was Firefly Summer by Maeve Binchy. Fireflies are hot, right? I mean, has the word fire. Yes, I'm gonna go with that. So it was a summer of warmth. That's what it even says on the back. So maybe not hot, but definitely warm. And let's see, it says Kate Ryan and her husband John have a rollicking pub in the Irish village of Mount Fern. Lovely 12-year-old twins and such wonderful dreams. But all that is about to change this fateful summer of 1962 when American millionaire Patrick O'Neill comes to town with his irresistible charm and a pocket full of money. When love and hate vie for a town's quiet heart and old traditions begin to crumble away. A time that has been captured forever in Maeve Binchy's compelling family drama, a novel you will never forget. So, yes, I do love some Maeve Binchy, and I think this sounds like a wonderful summer read. And then the next book with a hot cover does actually have a picture of something on fire on it, which is a candle. This is Shilling for Candles by Josephine Tay. You can see the candle flame burning there on the cover. So candles are hot. You can burn yourself on a candle. And in this one, it says, when a woman's body washes up on an isolated stretch of beach on the southern coast of England, Scotland Yard's Inspector Alan Grant is on the case. But the inquiry into her death turns into a nightmare of false leads and baffling clues. Was there anyone who didn't want lovely screen actress Christine Clay dead? The basis for Alfred Hitchcock's Young and Innocent, this fascinating mystery displays all of Tay's warmth and charm and sympathy and insight. Oh, I didn't know this was the basis for a Hitchcock film. Well, that could be kind of fun. I could read the book and then I could watch the Hitchcock film if I can find it streaming somewhere. Anyway, yeah, I do love a good mystery. Moving on to the next square on the book bingo board, and that is book in a series. And I have 3 books that qualify as a book in a series that I would potentially love to get to this summer. And the first one is actually the first book in a series, and it's a series I would love to start and read the entire series this summer if I can. And that is this series by Marcia Willett, which starts with Looking Forward. And the 2 other books in the series are Holding On and Winning Through. Sorry, I was looking at them on my shelf because I couldn't remember the titles. And the synopsis of this is, life at the Keep changes forever when Fliss, Mole, and Susanna arrive in the summer of 1957. Their parents and elder brother have been killed in Kenya, so the children are sent to their grandmother Freddie in Devon. Freddie is no stranger to grief, but she would be lost without her devoted helpers Ellen and Fox, who enable her to cope with this latest tragedy. And above all, she looks to her brother-in-law Theo to guide her while the children heal their wounds and embark on the treacherous journey to adulthood. Looking Forward is a magnificent story introducing us to the unforgettable Chadwick family. I would love to read the entire Chadwick family series this summer, and I am really hoping I could do one in June, one in July, and one in August and read the entire series. So that will hopefully be what I do. The next book in a series that I would potentially like to read this summer is Mrs. Tim Carries On by D.E. Stevenson, and this is the second book in the Mrs. Tim series. The first book in this series is really hard to get a hold of here in the US, and I actually ended up getting the audiobook. That was the only way I could find it, but I really enjoyed it on audio, and I have the remaining 3 books in the series on my shelf, and this is book 2, and I would love to get to it this summer. And I think, looks like they're standing on the beach, so seems like a good summer read to me. Yes, and Mrs. Tim I really enjoyed. I think if you like Diary of a Provincial Lady and things like that, you would enjoy the Mrs. Tim series. And then the third book that is part of a series that I would love to read this summer, and I would potentially like to read more books in this series this summer because I have a number of them sitting on my shelf, and that is The Elusive Mrs. Polifax by Dorothy Gilman. This is the 3rd book in the series. I am buddy reading book 2 with Miriam from Miriam Elizabeth Reads, and we're starting that next week. And so I would love to read The Elusive Mrs. Polifax in June and then just continue on with the series because they're such quick, fun, light mysteries. And I think I could probably get through a number of them. And I think I have the first 6 or so sitting on my shelf. Because as you know, after having read book 1, I am now a huge Mrs. Polifax fan and I want to read them all. The next category on the bingo board is joyful. I think you can take joyful however you want to take it. That could be it has joyful or joy in the title, or it's just a book you think will feel joyful. And that's how I have taken it to mean. I picked 2 books. The first one is one that I definitely think will be joyful because I adore this author, and this is actually 2 books in one, and that is Carney's House Party and Winona's Pony Cart by Maud Hart Lovelace. And this book takes place in the world of Betsy and Tacy, but is not part of that series. And it says, Carney's House Party. In the summer of 1911, Carolyn Carney Sibley is home from college and looking forward to hosting a month-long house party, catching up with the old crowd, including her friend Betsy Ray, and introducing them to her Vassar classmate Isabel Porteous. Romance is in the air with the return of Carney's high school sweetheart, Larry Humphreys, for whom she'd pined all these years. Will she like him as well as she once did, or will the exasperating Sam Hutchinson turn her head? And then in Winona's Pony Cart, more than anything in the world, Winona Root wants a pony for her 8th birthday. Despite her father's insistence that it's out of the question, she was wishing so hard that she's sure she'll get one. At least that's what she tells her friends, Betsy, Tacy, and Tib. Yes. So both of those sound completely joyful, and I'm very much looking forward to them. And then the second book that qualifies as something joyful is yet another book that has been sitting on my shelf for so many years. I don't even know, at least 4 or 5, I believe. And that is We Came Here to Shine by Susie Orman Schnall. And this takes place at the iconic 1939 New York World's Fair, where 2 ambitious young women navigate a world of possibility and find out what they are truly made of. And so it looks like gorgeous Vivi is about to begin filming her first starring role in a Hollywood picture when the studio head ships her off to New York as a favor to a friend. And she's assigned the leading role to the Aquacade synchronized swimming spectacular at the World's Fair, a fate she believes will destroy her film career. If she performs well, though, she'll have another chance at stardom, but with everything working against her, will her summer lead to opportunity or failure? And plucky Max dreams of becoming a serious journalist, but when her job at the New York Times doesn't pan out, she finds herself begrudgingly working for the daily paper of the World's Fair. As her ideas are continually overlooked by her male counterparts and her career prospects are put in jeopardy, Max must risk everything to change the course of her life. When Max's and Vivi's worlds collide, they forge an enduring friendship, one that teaches them to follow their dreams during the most meaningful summer of their lives. I think that sounds lovely. And look how joyful the cover is. Like all these ladies splashing in the water. The next bingo square category is second chance. And this could be either an author that you're giving a second chance to because you read something by them and maybe you didn't love it or like it, but you think maybe you would like this book by them, or maybe it's a book you started and didn't finish but want to come back to and give it another go. But I am choosing the former, which is an author I've read before, where I enjoyed the book, but I didn't completely love it or fall in love with it. And yet she's a very well-loved historical fiction author, and I've had this book sitting on my shelf for a really long time, and I'd like to at least give it another shot and see how I like this one. And that is The Last Train to Key West by Chanel Cleeton. I read Next Year in Havana and liked it, but I didn't completely fall in love with it, and it left a little bit something lacking for me. So we'll see how I get along with The Last Train of Key West, but I think this book will be the either make it or break it for whether or not I read any more by Chanel Cleeton. So I'm gonna give her one more chance and we'll see how I do. The next square on the bingo board is judge a book by its cover. And that's exactly what I did. I pulled 3 books off of my shelf whose covers I just love, think they're beautiful, and I'm going to give them a try, or at least try to get through one of them. We'll see how I do. The first book that I think has a gorgeous cover is Enchanted Islands by Allison Amend. I purchased this back when I had a Book of the Month Club subscription, which I have not had for a few years. And this sounds like a really intriguing story. It says, inspired by the mid-century memoirs of Frances Conway, Enchanted Islands is the dazzling story of an independent American woman whose path takes her far from her native Minnesota when she and her husband, an undercover intelligence officer, are sent to the Galapagos Islands at the brink of World War II. I mean, that sounds really interesting. Who doesn't find the Galapagos Islands fascinating? I certainly do. And I think this could be really brilliant depending on the writing. So we'll see. A little bit of a, escapist kind of a read for sure. So, and a beautiful, beautiful cover. Love, love all the flora and fauna on there. The next book that I am judging by its cover is The Lavender Garden by Lucinda Riley. I've read a few books by Lucinda Riley, and I have a few more on my shelf by her, and I've really enjoyed her writing. She does historical fiction, often in a dual timeline, and in this one, it takes place in La Côte d'Azur in 1998. In the sun-dappled south of France, Emilie de la Martinière, the last of her gilded line, inherits her childhood home, a magnificent chateau and vineyard. With the property comes a mountain of debt and almost as many questions. And then in Paris, 1944, a bright young British office clerk, Constance Carruthers, is sent undercover to Paris to be part of Churchill's special operations executive during the climax of the Nazi occupation. Separated from her contacts in the resistance, she soon stumbles into the heart of a prominent family who regularly entertain elite members of the German military, even as they plot to liberate France. But in a city rife with collaborators and rebels, Constance's most difficult decision may be determining whom to trust with her heart. As Emily discovers what really happened to her family during the war and finds a connection to Constance much closer than she suspects, the chateau itself may provide the clues that unlock the mysteries of her past, present, and future. Here is a dazzling novel of intrigue and passion from one of the world's most beloved storytellers. Sounds good. I think if you enjoy Kate Morton's stories, you would like Lucinda Riley. They have very similar dual timeline writing style. And I have enjoyed the books I've read by her already, and I'm looking forward to this one. And that is a beautiful cover. And then the last book for this category is Summer Darlings by Brooke Leah Foster. And I think this was a book that was around on Bookstagram a few years ago, and so I heard somebody talking about it and it sounded really good, so I purchased it. It says, set during the splendid summer days of 1960s Martha's Vineyard, this page-turning debut novel pulls back the curtain on one mysterious and wealthy family as seen through the eyes of their nanny, a college student who, while falling in love on the elegant island, is also forced to reckon with the dark underbelly of privilege. Yes. So, I don't know. It could be rich people doing bad things, which isn't a trope that I particularly love. I feel like it is really, really overdone. So we'll see how I get along with this one, but I'll at least probably give it a go because I would like to either read it or decide it's not for me and pass it along because it's been sitting on my shelf for quite a while and I haven't had a lot of impetus to pick it up, and we will see how I get along with it, as I said. The next square on the bingo board is nonfiction, and I have pulled 4 books off of my nonfiction TBR shelf that I would love to get to this summer. And the first book is actually the sequel to a memoir that I absolutely loved, and that is Raising Demons by Shirley Jackson. I read Shirley Jackson's first memoir about motherhood, which is called Among the Savages, last year, and I absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year, and this is best known for her chilling novels and stories. Shirley Jackson was equally masterful at chronicling the chaos of motherhood and small town life. In her second memoir, Jackson's Savages, her 4 children are all grown into full-fledged demons. Confronting a move to a new house, a faulty refrigerator, little league, and enough clutter to bury her alive, Jackson fends off domestic nightmares with one hand while spinning them into charming and witty stories with the other. A celebration of the strangeness of ordinary family life and a portrait of the 1950s ripped straight out of Mad Men and Norman Rockwell, Raising Demons is Shirley Jackson's reminder that every bit as thrilling as a murderous family in a haunted house is a loving family in a new home. Yes, I absolutely cannot wait. And I love this picture of the cat on this, giving some serious side eye to all those kids' hands reaching out to grab him. And then the next nonfiction book that I have on my TBR is White Cargo by Felicity Kendall. I can't remember where I heard about this book, but it has been on my radar, kind of in the back of my mind for a while. I think I found this copy on Thrift Books, and this is about Felicity Kendall. This is her memoir. She began writing this while her father was in a coma and she was sitting at his bedside, and she moves between the past and the present. She recaptures her magical childhood in India, her complex relationship with her father and the rest of her family, her love affairs, and the acting career that led to her being recognized as one of the outstanding actresses of her generation. And I do love memoirs about artistic people, those in the creative arts, and I have heard really wonderful things about this, so I am definitely looking forward to it. And then the next nonfiction is actually one that I borrowed from my mom, which she really loved and sounds really interesting. And I don't know that I've ever heard anyone else talk about this. And that is 20 Chickens for a Saddle, a story of an African childhood by Robin Scott. And this says, at the age of 6, Robin Scott moved to Botswana with her adventure-seeking parents. Here, under their affectionate but relaxed guidance, life for Robin and her siblings becomes a daily adventure of the kind usually confined to storybooks. But when the family moves to a game farm bordering South Africa, the children are faced with the darker undercurrents of life in Africa. The apartheid mindset lives on in many of their white South African neighbors. When Robin begins conventional school in neighboring Zimbabwe, she sees more of the racism initially only glimpsed in Botswana. With the rise of AIDS, long observed by Robin's father at his village clinics, the Scotts witness the tragic consequences of a disease acknowledged by the government too late, only as death on an unprecedented scale begins to devastate this peaceful and prosperous African country. Scott's funny, moving memoir, told with clear-eyed, unsentimental affection, is about a family's enthusiasm for each other and the world around them, with the essence of Africa, both beautiful and challenging, infusing every page. And that sounds really very interesting. So I am very, very curious to pick this one up. And then the last, these are all memoirs, I just realized. The last one is probably the one that most people will recognize or have heard of, and that is Out of the Corner by Jennifer Gray. And I actually think I'm going to listen to the audiobook of this because it is read by Jennifer Gray, and that is one of my favorite ways to read celebrity memoirs, is to have them read it to me in their own voice, especially if it's somebody who I know and loved. And I mean, I was a young teen when Dirty Dancing came out, so I have very fond memories of Jennifer Gray, and I loved watching her on Dancing with the Stars. That was just so much fun for me. And, you know, we share the same first name, so clearly we should be best friends. And I'm very curious to read this. I think it'll be a good audiobook listen for my summer walks this summer. Okay, the next two categories on the bingo board are actually two that I do not have any books picked out for. The first category is a graphic novel or manga, and I don't have any graphic novels or mangas on my shelf. I will probably check out a graphic novel from my library. I just have to decide what graphic novel I want to read. And I really actually do enjoy middle grade graphic novels. If anyone has any suggestions for a good one, definitely please leave that in the comments down below. I'm always up for suggestions. And then the next category is actually library book, so that will have to be something that I check out from the library. Only 2 more categories to go, and then we have made it to the free space on the bingo board. The next category, I only have 1 potential book for. I actually have some other books that fall into this category, but I have put them into other of the bingo board spots. The bingo board space is over 500 pages. Whew, a big chunky book. And the one I have picked up is The Passing Bells by Philip Rock. And I actually started reading this many years ago and then got distracted from it. It wasn't that I wasn't enjoying it. I wasn't really quite in the mood for it. And the blurb on it says, before there was Downton Abbey, there was Abingdon Priory. This is book 1 of the Passing Bells trilogy. And this takes place in the summer of 1914. And it says, war has not yet touched Abingdon Priory. And it says, here at the grand home of the Greville family, the parties, dances, and romances play on. Alexandra Grenville embarks on her debutante season while brother Charles remains hopelessly in love with the beautiful, untitled Lydia Fox, knowing that his father, the Earl of Stanmore, will never approve of the match. Downstairs, the new servant Ivy struggles to adjust to the routines of the well-oiled household staff as the arrival of American cousin Martin Rilke, a Chicago newspaperman, causes a stir. But ultimately, the Great War will not be denied, as what begins for the high-bred Grevilles is a glorious adventure soon takes its toll, shattering the household's tranquility, crumbling class barriers, and bringing its myriad horrors home. So yes, it sounds like a bit of an upstairs-downstairs story, so you're going to get both the wealthy family living upstairs and then some of the serving class down below as well. Has anyone read this? Does anyone know anything about it? Did you enjoy it? Did you read the whole series? Inquiring minds would like to know. And just to be clear, it has 516 pages, so just over the 500 mark. The final category on the book bingo board that is going to get us to the free space and the end of this first video is the escapism category. And again, I think this is a category you can take this to mean whatever you like, whatever kind of book feels like escapism to you. And for me, I picked 3 mysteries because there is nothing that I can escape into more than a really good mystery. The first mystery that I have is The Windsor Knot by S.J. Bennett. And in this, we find Queen Elizabeth as a sleuth. This was quite the popular book when it first came out, and I've heard some mixed reviews of it, but I don't know, I thought it could just be kind of a fun, light read for the summertime. And it takes place in advance of Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday, but preparations are interrupted when a guest dies in one of the castle bedrooms. And then apparently the Queen has been living a double life. Unbeknownst to her closest friends and advisors, she's the most brilliant skill for solving crimes. And so she goes about trying to solve this murder, apparently, or death, or whatever it is. And I just think that sounds fun and delightful and very, very escapist. The next book I've chosen for this category is part of one of my very favorite mystery series that I am currently in the middle of, and that is The Outcast Dead by Ellie Griffiths. This is the next book in the Ruth Galloway mystery series. I believe this is book 6 or 7. And yes, in this we follow Ruth. She's excavated a body from the grounds of Norwich Castle, once a prison. The body may be that of Victorian murderess Jemima Green. Called Mother Hook for her claw-like hand, Jemima was hanged for the murder of 5 children. DCI Harry Nelson has no time for long-ago killers. Investigating the case of 3 infants found dead, one after the other, in their King's Lynn home, he's convinced that their mother is responsible. Then a child goes missing. Could the abduction be linked to the long-dead Mother Hook? Ruth is pulled into the case and back towards Nelson. So yes, very excited to get back to Ruth, and I have the next 3 or 4 books in the series on my shelf, so maybe I'll read more than one. We will see. Love to escape into some Ruth. And then the next mystery that I picked for this category is I believe this is the start of a series, which I have heard wonderful, wonderful things about, and that is Above Suspicion by Helen McInnes. And in this, it says, Richard and Frances Miles are preparing for their annual European summer vacation in 1939 when they are visited at their Oxford College by old friend Peter Galt, who has a seemingly simple job for them. Galt asks if they would start their holiday in Paris, meet a man there, and then continue their journey as he directs. But in the heightened atmosphere of pre-war Europe, nobody is above suspicion. In fact, the husband and wife are being carefully monitored by shadowy figures. Soon the couple are racing across Europe and must use all their ingenuity to stay one step ahead of the enemy. That sounds very good and intriguing, and I cannot wait to read this. Yes, this might be one of my first summer reads because I'm very excited about that one. Okay, we have made it to the free space on the bingo board, so I am going to stop this video here and I will continue on with the remainder of the categories in a second video. Thank you so much for watching this part. If you could give it a like and hit that subscribe button, I really do appreciate it. And leave me a comment down below. Are you going to participate in Summer Book Bingo? Did you find anything you might add to your summer TBR from what I talked about here today? And I will be back with the second half of this video very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.